Right. I gladly welcome you to today's conversation in microeconomics. I want us to continue, attempting this particular assignment number 2 that we have. Question number 1, we already had a conversation on this one, and there is already a recording of this one. Let's have, I think we can start from question number 2. And let's see how question number 2 has to be answered. And the question number 2 is reading, in your hearing, I read. Your university newspaper, the Unipress, has fixed production cost of 70 kwacha per edition, and the marginal printing and distribution cost of 40 ngwe per copy, okay? 40 ngwe per copy. Now, how is it done, right? 40 ngwe per copy. The Unipress sells for 15 ngwe per copy again, right? That's the selling price. Selling price, they sell 15 ngwe per copy. And you are to write down the following, write down the associated cost function, write down the revenue and the marginal cost. Let us start with the, the cost function, the total costs. Let's start with the fixed cost function. The fixed costs is a cost that does not change. So for that reason, the fixed costs, can even name it fixed costs. Fixed costs shall equal to what? Shall equal to 70 kwacha per what? Per edition. This is the fixed cost per edition. Simple. That's part of number A. Then number 2, what's the variable cost? So the variable cost is what? Is 14 ngwe, which is 0.40 per what? Per copy, right? 14 ngwe per copy is the variable cost, 14 ngwe per copy. Now, the cost function has to be written as follows. So you can, this is the variable cost, sorry. This is the variable cost. You should have write variable cost. Then the total cost, write down now, total cost. Okay, total cost. How shall it be total cost? Total cost is equal to the fixed cost plus the variable cost. So in that case, our fixed cost is 70 plus the variable cost 0.40 per copy. Let X represent the value of the copy. So this will be the equation for the what? For the total cost. Our total cost function will be the sum of the fixed plus the what? The variable costs. And in this case, you indicate that where X, okay, where X equal to the number of what? Number of what? Of copies. Simple. So we have found the total cost. Now we need the marginal cost. Let's show the marginal cost. We have found the total cost. The marginal cost is basically the derivative of the total function, right? The derivative of the total function. Okay. How shall it be the marginal cost? So it is actually, let me write the total cost. It is the total cost that is equal to 70 plus 0.40 X, right? We assume that X is the number of copies. So to find the marginal cost, you take the first derivative, use calculus. So marginal cost MC shall be, the TC over dx in this case, right? We use x, we have used the x for the number of variables. For that reason, you differentiate this function with respect to x, which shall be equal to 0.40. That's marginal cost. So our marginal cost, if you want to go ahead and show marginal cost, it is as good as 0.40. Simple. That's simple. Now, let's go ahead and we've found the total cost. We also need to find the revenue, right? The revenue and the profit function. Let's find the revenue from the total cost. Sorry, we have the total cost function. Now let's find the revenue function, right? So now to find the revenue function, how do you find the revenue? Remember, revenue is price times what? Times output. And our output in this case is X, like quantity, the number of copies. One copy times the number of copies. So let's call this our revenue equal to what? Price times copies times the number of what? Copies, the quantities of copies. In this case, we say the copies is X, so it will be PX, which shall be equal to, our P is 50, right? 15 which is 0.50, then X. This is our what? That is our revenue function. That's our revenue function. Okay, let's have that as our revenue function. We have found our revenue function. We need the profit function. Remember, the profit, this is a total cost function on top, then revenue function, profit function. How do you find the profit? The profit is revenue minus what? Minus the total cost. Okay. How do you find, profit? You just deduct from revenue, deduct the costs. Simple. So we already know our revenue. Our revenue is what? 0.50, right? X minus, what's the cost? The whole cost function is 7 plus what? 0.40 x. We close that. That's the whole cost function. And so we are going to, simplify this to find the revenue function, the profit function. Let us simplify. Let us start simplifying. So the profit function shall equal to 0.50x, minus 7 minus 0.4x, right? In that case, we know that, 50x and 40x, 0.50x and 0.40x, they are like terms together. So you can say 0.50x minus 0.4x minus 7, so that you have 10 what? 10x minus 70, not 10, 0.10, not 10, 0.10x as the profit function. Okay. So now this is going to be your function. Now, the profit function will be found in that manner. But look, let's go over this a bit again. Revenue, okay, minus That's revenue minus the total cost. And the total cost was found by adding together the variable and the fixed cost. They were put together. Right. So it is 10x minus 70. Right. Now you have your profit what? Your profit function. Your profit function. Revenue minus total cost gives us the profit function. Okay. This is our profit function. So we have the profit function, which is equal to 0.10x minus 70. This is the profit function. So now, what happens from here? The question goes over and asks us what profit or what loss results from the sale of 500 copies. So the copies are the values of x. This is b now. So what you do in this profit function, can you put this figure, the number of copies where there is x, which is 500 copies minus 70, right? So you can say 0.10 times 500, that should give you 50, right? Should give you 50. Minus 70, which is equal to negative 20. Okay. That is got to be negative 20. And since this is a negative number, this entails it is a loss. So there is a loss from the sale of 500 copies. So if you sold 500 copies, you make the loss of 20 kwacha. Okay, that's the conclusion. The sale of 500 kwacha gives a loss of how much? Of 20 kwacha. It's a loss of 20 kwacha. That's big. Now, part C of the question is asking us, how many copies should we sell for us to break even? Now, what is to break even? Maybe that should be a question number one. Now, to break even, or a break even point is a point, right, where, you know, the break even point, this is a point where the profit equal to the cost. That is to say, the firm is no longer making the profit or is no longer making a what? A loss. At that point, the profit is zero because, let me just re-echo this, total revenue at this point. Total revenue is equal to total what? Total cost. So for that reason, profit is equal to zero at this point. You're not making profit. It's just zero because you say total revenue minus total costs, all that equal to zero at this point. This is the first condition. And I'll show you there are two ways of going about this question. This is part C of the question right now. So what you do, the total revenue function, which is 0.50x, shall equal to the cost, which is 70 plus 0.40x. Working out the like terms together, you have 0.50x minus 0.40x, right? Crossing the equal sign, equal to 70. So that you can have 0.10x equal to what? 0.10x equal to 70. And you divide through by 0.10. 0.10. so that X, which are the number of copies, can equal to 700 copies. So which means for you to break even, not to make a loss, you need 700 copies, and which is making sense because if when you sold just 500 copies, you made a loss. Now for you to just break even such that the cost now is equal to the revenue, you need 500 copies. This is one way of doing it, right? It's one way of doing it. Or the same expression, if you may like, you can just say fixed cost, right? Fixed cost divided by, the contribution margin. This is the other way of doing it, where you say the fixed cost divided by the contribution margin, which is given by the selling price minus the variable costs per unit. Sales price per unit divided by the variable cost per unit, which shall be 70, divided by the sales price is 0.50 minus variable cost 0.40. It will still be the same thing, which will be 70 divided by 0.10, and it gives us 700 copies to break even. We need 700 copies for us to break even. Is there any question from anybody? Hello? Is there any question? All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I wish you well. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel.